Hello, beautiful people. Larissa here, coming in with a response to a question that was left on one of my recent videos. What is a shadow? So before we dive in and get started, I wanted to share with you this beautiful carnation that came from a sound healing event that I went to today. Wanted to give you a nice up close look at it. It matched my shirt. Look at the perfectness of the petals. Oh, so good. So good. So I wanted to share that with you all. Now, when it comes to and that's my ego. My ego wants you to see this lovely, pretty flower and tell it how pretty it is and how much you appreciate it, and just like me, and just love on the flower. That is the ego part of us that seeks the beauty. It seeks the pleasure, right? It is the elements of us, the aspects of our human ID, the way that we identify ourselves as the pleasure seeker, the one that sees the beauty, the small things, that stops and smells the flowers, that looks up at the stars, that gazes up at the clouds, right? That plays, that swings on a swing set, right? That is our ego. Now the shadow is the opposite of that, right? So yin and yang, for every light, there is a darkness, and darkness doesn't have to be bad or wrong or any kind of label like that. It just is shadow. Now the shadow is the part of us that seeks more of the repression. It seeks more of the resistance in life. The pleasure is the opposite of that, and the resistance would be the contrast, right? So the shadow parts of ourselves are the parts of us that we want to keep tucked away. Those parts that maybe we don't necessarily want to look at. For example, some of my shadow aspects are that I can be really self-critical, and that self-criticalness can be projected onto other people when I'm feeling insecure. Another one for me would be my shadow. Ooh, anxiety. I don't want people to know how anxious I can be, right? That I can get depressed sometimes. I want my ego to shine through. I want people to feel good around me and not feel that shadow, that maybe that denser of a vibration. The shadow, like I said, is the parts of us that we want to keep tucked away. We want to keep them hidden. We don't want people necessarily to see us for our shadow. We want them to see us for our brightness, our bubbliness, our contribution, our acts of service, the sides of us that help others to feel good, right? And the shadow are the repressed parts of us, the parts that our inner child had to keep quiet, right? So one of mine also is be quiet, be small, be a good girl, and you won't get in trouble. That one goes deep. I actually had a conversation with a friend of mine earlier today about that part of myself that's ready to be loved and nurtured. And that, my friends, is the magic of the shadow. The magic of the shadow is the ability to alchemize, the ability to transmute that shadow into more of a light, into more of not necessarily the ego, that full extreme, but more of a well-rounded aspect of ourself. I actually wanted to share with you Carl Jung's description of what a shadow is. I feel like his description just nails it so beautifully and pretty much says it all. So I'll share with you, what is a shadow? Carl Jung describes the shadow as the unconscious part of our character or personality that does not align with the ideal version of what we're aiming for, aka the ego ideal. So the ego, like we said, is the what? Is the seeking of pleasure, right? Okay. And the shadow seeks resistance and repression. So the shadow wants to be quiet and small. And the ego's like, hey, look at me, I'm here. I'm a Leo rising, so I can completely identify with that. So again, I'm going to read that one more time for us to really allow that to sink in. And if you're someone like me that allowing the outside stimulus to not be so distractive, you can close your eyes and soften your belly and just allow these words to seep into your subconscious. The shadow is the unconscious part of our character or personality that does not align with the ideal version of what we're aiming for. So if you are aiming to be someone who is a giver, maybe part of you wants to start volunteering at a food bank or something like that, right? And then the shadow's like, I'm not good enough for that. I don't have time. I don't have time. I need to be working. I need to be producing. I need to be busy. I don't have time to give back. I want to give back. Yes, the shadow sees the need and desire to want to give back and give unconditionally. And at the same time, there's a lot of resistance, a lot of repression from stepping into that giver identity, right? Because the ego is wanting to hold on to that. So I wanted to touch today just a quick little video for you all and give you my idea of what a shadow is and what I was referring to in my previous video, and also throw a little Carl Jung in there. He's a good read. He's a good read. And I really want to touch, the last point I want to make is that there's nothing wrong with the shadow. And learn to not identify it as bad or wrong to have these shadow aspects of ourselves, when I can learn to love my judgment and see that that is my inner child that is just wanting to be safe and protected and calculated so that I literally don't die, because your inner child is operating under that scared child mentality that you have to take care of yourself, especially if you're someone that has dealt with abandonment issues before. With parental figures or guardians that were supposed to love and take care of you. That shadow is going to want to do everything in its power to keep you safe. And when we become adults, when we step into these new identities of being able to take care of ourselves and being able to navigate life, we don't necessarily need to be so self-dependent. We are human beings meant to work in communities. And if we can learn to, as a collective, embrace our shadows and not shame ourselves or anybody else for these shadow aspects that we may not necessarily like so much, when we can learn to love them and not like them necessarily, then that's where a lot of healing can come in, because we begin to be more of a well-rounded and balanced person. We are learning to love and appreciate ourselves. So with that, my loves, I will leave you with that short little video for you today. Again, my name is Larissa. I am a movement and mindset coach based out of Orlando, Florida. It is my honor to share these little tidbits with you, and hope that you are able to take these tidbits, these golden nuggets, these practices that we practice together, and that you're able to take them outside of being in a video and actually embody them in your life, and learn to feel within yourself what it feels like to step into your truest power and live a fully juicy embodied life. And until we meet again, my friends, I love you, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.